All right, happy Labor Day weekend. We continue our Quick Hitter 49ers series with a preview of the 2022 defense. Same thing as the offense. I want to look at 2021 performance and then gauge what they can do here in 2022 with a nice roster-wide outlook. Last year, DVOA, that's from Football Outsiders, the 49ers ranked number 15 against the pass, mediocre, and number 2 against the run. They're actually really good against the run. And now those splits were even more disparate early in the season. The pass defense was near the bottom of the league. Remember all the pass interference penalties? They actually figured stuff out a little bit later on because the pass rush started getting home a little bit more. The coverage got just a tiny bit better, right? You remember all those Josh Norman struggles early in the year. But it was mainly the run defense that set everything up for the 49ers. And the key thing that happened was that Eric Armstead moved from end to tackle and really started getting to work with DJ Jones, who's now with Denver. They're on the inside to help stymie opposing run games and unleash the pass rush. So anyway, we'll get more into it because it relates exactly to what I'm going to talk about regarding the 49ers defensive line. Javon Kinlaw is such a hinge point on this football team. Let me explain how the 49ers run defensively. Wide 9, that's the alignment that Chris Kasarik, the defensive line coach, loves. It is an aggressive alignment. You stretch out those defensive linemen. They play far apart. And the goal is to give the defensive ends, your edge rushers, green grass to try to run around the tackles on the outside. As you know, in its simplest sense, the wide 9 is the way to get athletes on your defensive line out into space. But the thing is, you can't just run a bunch of crappy players in a wide 9 defensive line because they are spread out. Each guy's got more responsibility, right? He has more turf to take care of. So if you have bad players, it's not going to work. You have to have a bunch of Ferraris up there for the wide 9 to work. And Javon Kinlaw is the Ferrari that you got to put right in the middle of the wide 9 as the defensive tackle. There's a reason why the 49ers drafted this guy, invested so much in him. And it's because Javon Kinlaw has got a massive body and he's also athletic. And they're counting on him to eat up space, eat up double teams, and add a little bit of pass rushing from the middle. So let's see how he does this season. Coming off the knee injury, he's so happy now. He's ready to play football. And he's got to reprise a lot of the role that the 49ers saw from DJ Jones so successfully last year. Again, when Armstead moved inside last year, he gobbled up the interior with DJ Jones. And that allowed Nick Bosa, Sansom Ebukam, Jordan Willis, Charles Amenahu, you name it, all those guys to eat from the outside. So you unlock success. You earn that pass rushing success by having that tackle position, stop the run, gobble up space on the interior. You have to earn the right to rush the passer, and that's why Javon Kinlaw is so important for the 49ers to make this wide 9 work. You can't have average players on this defensive line for it to work. It is a high reward, but high risk kind of defense, and you mitigate some of the risk if the guys that you have play really well. Moving on to the linebacker core. The 49ers have the best core in the league, I'm convinced. Tampa Bay can talk about 2 really good linebackers, right? Because Shaq Barrett's actually an edge rusher. He's listed as the linebacker there in a 3-4. But the 49ers run a 4-3, 3 true stack linebackers. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shire. And then you talk about the depth, right? Oren Burks. They've got some more thump in that unit. But these guys are the best in the league, and they got to play like it. They have to stay healthy, too. Last year, Fred Warner stayed healthy, but you didn't see Dre Greenlaw stay healthy. Played only 2 regular season games. If you have all 3 of these guys, you could do some crazy stuff. You can run a lot of base defense. You could be solid up against the run. You could still cover tight ends. I mean, they're really, really talented. They could set the tone for games, right? But they have to stay healthy and they have to play up to their potential. So I'm watching that linebacker core this year because to me, that bridges the gap between rush and coverage. You got your pass rush and your defensive line, which obviously with the 49ers is really solid. Coverage, we'll talk about here in a second, but the linebackers do both. The linebackers are right in the middle. And, you know, D'Amico Ryans, defensive coordinator, former all-pro linebacker. So the DNA of this defense really runs through the front 7, and those linebackers are right at the middle of it. And, you know, we talk about that secondary, first cornerback. Last year, the 49ers weren't good at cornerback. I mean, they patched it together. They made it work late in the season. Still got roasted by the Rams in the NFC Championship game. So they went into the offseason. They said, hey, we got to spend our limited money on a top-flight corner. And they think that Charvarius Ward, who calls himself Mooney Ward, is the answer to that. And he looked sticky in training camp. So sticky corners change defensive outlooks. Rush fuels coverage. Coverage can fuel rush. It's a symbiotic relationship. The 49ers had a bit of it in 2019 when Richard Sherman was still playing some really good football for him. Charvarius Ward is younger. Charvarius Ward is a different style of corner as they move to more of this press man stuff, moving a little bit away from the cover three. And we'll see if the more multiple defense can thrive with Charvarius Ward there. Emmanuel Mosley looking really good too. We'll see when Jason Verrett comes back. And then obviously Samuel Womack has to play that slot position. But it all starts with your best cornerback. And then you're only as good as your worst cornerback. But the 49ers ceiling at corner is much higher this year since they're not reliant on Jason Verrett being healthy. Now, this is something that can hinder the 49ers defense. Jimmy Ward has got a torn hamstring. He's going to miss at least the first 4 games, maybe a little bit more. Ward is underrated. He is the heartbeat of the back end of this defense. He does so many different things. He's like a glue piece for them, right? So it's imperative that the 49ers weather the loss of Jimmy Ward while he's out. Talanoa Hufanga has got to step up. Tarvarius Moore, George Odom, whoever plays back there. Maybe they sign Jaquaski Tart after week 1. I don't know what exactly they're going to do, but I'm going to be watching this really closely. Because if you don't do it, well, then all the other defensive work can go for naught if safeties are just blowing coverages downfield. So they have to bridge the gap between now and when Jimmy Ward comes back. And then, obviously special teams, can't forget about them. Offense was in the other video, so make sure you watch that one if you just joined this right now. But special teams, that derailed a lot of the season for the 49ers last year. They got back on track, but boy, it took some overcoming of bad special teams play. So they let go of Richard Hightower, former special teams coach. They brought in Brian Schneider. He's got a hell of a track record, mostly from Seattle. And they need to see a positive effect on special teams from Schneider and kick return efficiency, punt efficiency, everything. The coverage units and the return units both need to be better. If they're not, the 49ers may well throw away a lot of progress they've made elsewhere. All right, so that's the preview of the 49ers defense. Stay tuned for my win prediction as I combine my offensive and defensive quick strike run-throughs. Remember, they were number 15 against the pass and number 2 against the run last year. The goal is to be better than that. The goal is to get better than number 15 against the pass and to stay about the same against the run. Because if the 49ers do that, they can have a top 2 defense. And I'll tell you what, there's a massive difference between a top 2 defense and a top 6 defense. Massive. As far as like points generated and stuff, the top 2 defense, which they had in 2019, is 2 touchdowns better than the top 6 defense that they had in 2020. And then last year, they're around there, maybe a little bit worse. So if they want to dictate games, because the offense may start a little bit slower with Trey Lance learning the ropes and all this and all that, offensive line, obviously not looking too great right now. If the 49ers want to dictate games, they have to find a way to make these metrics better. They have to be a top 2 defense. They have to be a locomotive that pulls the rest of the 49ers train. All right, everybody take care. Big preview and win total prediction is coming up in the next video. Hope you're having a great Labor Day weekend.